I mean, it's something that I haven't really committed to, like playing since a very dark day in my life when a like 9-year-old Michael Vasco beat me in Madden when
I remember this.
I was like what are we 5 years older than Michael? 6 years older.
6. Yeah.
I was probably 14 or 15 and Michael dominated me. It was and I tried. And I don't truly play Madden much anymore after that dark day in my life. I still, it's one of those funny things where it's like,
it soiled it for you. Yeah.
It's really one of those things where I laugh because I'm like, I still like to play Madden every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like I certainly can pick it up. Like I'm not inept at playing, but it really was one of those moments for me where I could draw like a line of demarcation in my life saying, I used to I thought I was good at video games. I play video games. And then it was like, you know, as you get older and you're like a teenager, you're like, well, maybe I play a little less because I'm more involved in other things. And it's like, well, this 9-year-old just destroyed me. And so I'm not as good as I once was, as Toby Keith would say. But like shout out to Christian McCaffrey, well deserved. I think Madden cover. I think it's one of those universally like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. Like there was no one I think that had like a gripe against Christian McCaffrey getting it. Josh, especially because Josh has already got one. Josh Allen, Lamar has already got one. Mahomes has already got one. I think the only argument you can make is like the only superstar
Burrow.
QB, it would be Burrow, but he's coming off an injury-plagued season, so that doesn't make sense because usually you like to get a guy when they're coming off a big year. Maybe Tyreek
Does Rodgers have one?
I don't think Rodgers ever had a Madden cover.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy, actually.
When he won his MVPs early in his career, he never got a Madden cover.
Yeah, and then Mahomes was the most recent MVP seasons for Rodgers.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. I mean, you know, maybe he'd have a gripe, I guess, to say I never got a Madden cover. That's a little embarrassing, I think, in a weird way for like a guy like his legacy. And
yeah, because Drew Brees got one. Tom Brady. I don't know.
Get a Madden cover?
Yeah, Drew Brees did. Yep.
No,
I think
Peyton
09.
never did.
I want to say 09 was Brees.
Peyton never did, but Peyton had that NFL Xbox game that, like, when Xbox first came out.
Oh,
there was an NFL game specifically for Netflix, and Peyton Manning was on the cover.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, obviously, people bring up the Madden curse. I don't think that's even
been talked about much anymore.
That's happened. No, all it takes is a few years of it not to happen, a player not to get injured after they were on the cover, for that, you know, rumor or that, you know, whatever you want to put out there, for that to get dispelled. So yeah,
and then
Christian McCaffrey goes in good press out of that.
John Madden had the cover in 2023, and that would have been after Aaron Rodgers' other big year.
Right. Yeah. Barry Sanders got the you know, legacy one in 2020, I think it was.
The last game, the last Madden I played was the Lamar Jackson 2021. I have that for Xbox One. I mean 360. And I played that, but I haven't played any newer.
It hasn't gotten better in probably.
My problem with it is like years. I always liked, like, to me, like, so my era of Madden and like the great Madden games would have been like Ray Lewis 05, Michael Vick 04, Marshall Faulk 03. Like those would be like where you say like, oh, I was like 11, 12, 13. That's like peak. I was good at Madden, where the game was better graphics than like the 2000 with, like, you know, Eddie George on the cover, and you had a kind of more modern movement and passing, but without it getting way too complicated. Because then they introduced the things like
and way too, you know, computer driven.
Yeah, like quarterback cone and all that stuff. Yeah, Drew Brees.
That was really hard. Yeah, no, I think like 06-ish, McNabb on the cover was like, that was right where I started to really get into Madden quite a bit.
But Sean Alexander 07 and Vince Young 08. But like after that, I chilled off. But I do think there is some people you could make the argument, and I think Aaron Rodgers is one. And now I would say Joe Burrow is probably the only other active player you could be like, he doesn't have a Madden cover. That's a little bit like of a, okay, he's a, you know, who else? Yeah. I mean, Tyreek
Hill and Travis Kelce at this point would be like, wow, they don't have one, you know, because they're so popular and really, really good.
And kind of both very much like well, we know Travis, but Tyreek is very much like another good season from Tyreek. He's probably a Hall of Famer. Like one more, if he has another 1,000-yard year this year, like that's probably a Hall of Famer. Mike Evans never got one, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Derrick Henry, that would have been.
Derrick Henry never got one, but
cool,
as of right now, I'd say Derrick Henry's not a Hall of Famer.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I would say he's a Hall of Famer, to be honest. I mean,
those rushing yards. He's at what, like 8,000. I mean, you got to really break 10,000 as a
sure, but I would also say he's the guy that kind of kept the running back position alive in terms of like goal line back and longevity. I mean, the guy hasn't been hurt really his career, which is very impressive.
No. And he's got a chance. Like if he has like 2 really good seasons in Baltimore, like if he gets back to like if he can get 2,700 yards over the next 2 years, and another 15 touchdowns, those numbers will boost him. Like that will really help him get on that.
Because you're not, to me, they're gonna have to change how a running back is determined to be in the Hall of Fame, because 10,000 career yards,
it's just never happening.
Isn't gonna be a thing really. The closer and closer we get to this new push and new era. Although, I mean, McCaffrey and Henry are the ones that could get 10,000, but there aren't many. I mean, it's very, very rare for that to happen now with this new generation. So, yeah, that used to be the easy benchmark, but now it's
all right. This is classic off-season football talk. We start with Madden cover, and it leads into, is Derrick Henry a Hall of Famer? You get us started. I'm going to look up where they're both at yardage-wise.
Yeah, okay. That'll be fun to see where my thought is on that versus what the reality is. But, we've got a stacked show today. It's been a couple weeks since we all met here with you all, so excited to get back to the airwaves for this one. And really, this is just a roundup episode, if you will. We've got a lot to talk about. Trevor Lawrence's new contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, some other new contracts as well. Ramondre Stevenson signing with the Patriots. We've got T. Higgins signing his franchise tender. We'll talk about that. Brandon Ayuk still upset about not getting a new deal with the San Francisco 49ers. What are his trade prospects here on the horizon? Aaron Rodgers misses mandatory OTAs, and it was an unexcused absence from the team, and Robert Saleh making that clear, and now that's caused a whole ruckus. And the NFL being sued, and it's been a lawsuit that's almost a decade in the making, but finally taken to trial over Sunday Ticket. So
interesting.
Is there going
to
be
interesting story?
It's very, very fascinating. Are we going to get a total shakeup in how the NFL fans are able to access the game in the coming years, and what potential damages could be paid out by the NFL? So we'll get to all of that and more in this episode. But before we kick into Trevor Lawrence, which is going to be the topic of conversation to begin things, did you find the stats?
I did. So let me ask you, can I ask you a question? Who has more rushing yards in their career right now? Ezekiel Elliott, Elliott or Derrick Henry?
Oh, wow. I mean, my guess would be Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry does have more rushing yards. Who has more rushing yards, Ezekiel Elliott or Christian McCaffrey?
I'm going to go Zeke, because McCaffrey had injuries and much more of a dual threat guy.
Yeah. Zeke is at 8,904. And he did sign back with the Cowboys. So he's 1,000 yards away, 1,100 yards away from that.
He'll get to 10,000.
So 10,000. So here's why I think 10,000 is important. So there are 31 running backs that have 10,000. Okay. And of the 31, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, of the 31, there's the lowest in the Hall of Fame with like Terrell Davis has only 7,600 yards, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Right. Yeah.
But TD was a crucial part of back-to-back Super Bowls, and we all can agree he's a Hall of Fame running back talent. There's some others. Earl Campbell, injuries got him late. He ended with 9,407 yards. But obviously,
Jackson,
he's a Hall of Famer. So there are guys who are at the 10,000 mark who are not going to be Hall of Famers, right? Like Ricky Williams, Marshawn Lynch, Eddie George, Tiki Barber, Thomas Jones, Jamal Williams, Warwick
Eddie
Dunn.
George isn't a Hall of Famer?
Eddie George is not.
Interesting.
So those are guys. LaShawn McCoy. Now, LaShawn McCoy, he retired in 2020, and
he should be a Hall of Famer.
He's 1,100, so he's very borderline. Now, I would argue Derrick Henry. Listen to this,
right?
11,000, yeah.
Okay.
Derrick Henry is at 9,502, so he is way higher than I thought. He's 498 yards from. He'll hit 10,000 this year if he stays healthy. Yeah. So if Derrick Henry can get to that 11,100 mark like LaShawn McCoy, I would put Derrick Henry in the Hall over LaShawn McCoy for sure.
Yeah, I would probably do that too.
I don't think LaShawn McCoy feels to me like a Phil Rivers, like Hall of very, very good kind of line of demarcation guy, because he never won anything big. And his yards, while impressive, he
how many? He had a lot of receiving yards though too.
True, you'd have to see total yards.
4,000 receiving
You'd have
yards?
to see total yards, but like Steven Jackson, old Rams running back, mid 2000s.
Oh yeah, phenomenal.
11. He's got more rushing yards than LaShawn McCoy, and he's not.
I've advocated for him to be in the Hall of Fame for a while.
Fred Taylor, he's not a Hall of Famer. He's got more rushing yards than them.
Yeah.
But every single person over 12,000 yards is in the Hall of Fame, because the only two that are not in the Hall of Fame are Frank Gore, he'll be in it, and then Adrian Peterson, he'll be in it.
Yeah.
So if you hit 12,000, it's a guarantee as of right now. Tractor Cito, Derrick Henry is what, 2,500 yards away from that. Like, Derrick Henry's got a legit chance. He's got
the 2-year contract with Baltimore. If he has 1,100 yard season,
he's got to hit.
Be so close to that.
If he hits 1,300 yards and then 1,200 yards, that's like Hall of Fame. So I'm okay with the line being 12, because like if you're like, no, the guy who's not in the Hall of Fame is LaShawn McCoy, I'm like, okay, like.
Yeah, but then also then every running back after this is like not going to get close to 12. So how are we going to determine?
Unless I think it's easy, like a guy like, okay, so let's talk about our guy, Christian McCaffrey. He's at 6,185. He has less than Dalvin Cook. They're in the same draft class.
Yeah, but he's also got 5,000 receiving yards.
So that's the thing with Christian McCaffrey. You're going to be able to look at the true totality. He's played in a Super Bowl now. He's definitely got a chance to play in another Super Bowl. He is a offense. Like, how many offensive player of the years does he have versus LaShawn McCoy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he'll probably have racked up more medals, more trophies that'll make up for the lack of yards if he doesn't get to 11,000 rushing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he's and it's just the eye test too. Like, he's clearly the most electric back that there's been in a generation.
It's really interesting because, I mean, there are running backs like Floyd Little. Never heard of him. He played from 67 to 75 for Denver. He's got 6,322. He's in the Hall of Fame. Steve Van Buren, Philadelphia. 5,800, but
Gale Sayers had.
Yeah, their careers ended. You know what I mean? Hugh McElhenny. He ended his career after 4 teams in 1964 with 5,200, and he's in the Hall. So you definitely have to judge it differently. But like, I'd argue, I'm comfortable with LaShawn McCoy not being in. So I do like in the modern world. Yeah, okay, the conversation starts with 10,000 or more, or what else are you bringing to the table?
Or did you contribute to the league in some way that was
if LaShawn McCoy's argument is, well, I have this many total yards, okay, but Derrick Henry will probably end up having more total yards, and Derrick Henry, didn't he win an MVP? Or he was an offensive player of the year.
He didn't win an MVP, but
let me look up Derrick Henry.
OPOY for sure.
1-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, 2020 AP Offensive Player of the Year. Now, in fairness to LaShawn McCoy, let me look up his.
I mean, he had a 2,000-yard season. I mean, he's on
LaShawn McCoy is a 2-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, and he did win some garbage rings. Well, he won 1 ring with Philly when he was important, and then, I mean, LaShawn McCoy's got I guess LaShawn McCoy's got he's got more of a gripe than I guess. I mean, Derrick Henry's got way more touchdowns already. He's got, so again, this is crazy. We did not mean for this 15 minutes into the show to be into this talk, but it is it's kind of a fun debate, the modern NFL running back. And it leads us into the fact that one running back just got paid, Dan.
Yeah. We can talk about Ramondre Stevenson with the Patriots here.
Yeah, real quick.
Getting a 4-year, $36 million deal, $9 million per year, which is, more than, especially he's not a superstar in the NFL. So more than what the average NFL running back is making. To me, this was a clear sign by Gerard Mayo and the new staff there with the Patriots to say, well, we've got a young rookie quarterback, so we're going to try and develop as much stability around him as we can. And Ramondre is a really talented back and can a 3-down back, good blocker, some guy that we can create some stability there because we need to figure out the wide receiver position. We need to figure out, the offensive line a bit more. At least we can get something here to develop that rapport with and a reliability in the backfield.
What do they always say about sometimes your contract? It's like it's time and place, right? Mm-hmm. You may come up for your contract ends and it's like, oh, well, we just had 2 bad earnings years in a row. As much as we love you, we're now not going to be able to pay you as much as the guy you're better than, but we paid him 2 years ago. And that's when things were good. It's like the yin and the yang. Ramondre Stevenson got really lucky. He's a solid running back, an above average running back, really important to what the Patriots want to do. And he just so happened to be the only guy there they can pay. They have no wide receivers and they have a rookie quarterback. So it's like, all right, someone's got to get money. Yeah. Someone's got to get some money. So he really lucked out. You know what I mean? Like he fell into a good spot versus like in Dallas, you look at right now. Well, they're in a really tough situation because you have 3 guys you got to pay, and they're all 3 extremely important. But can you pay 3 guys at one time on the same? There's contracts all being in the same class. It's almost impossible to do. They're in a really tough spot. So he got a little bit of luck, but also is talented enough to have earned the contract. So shout out to him.
Yeah, and there's questions now about like what's this going to do for some of the other running backs that are kind of in that gray area of getting a new contract. Najee Harris has been talked about here because he's going to be due some sort of extension. Is this the benchmark? Is it $9 million per year the benchmark for a lot of these talented running backs that aren't necessarily superstars in the league, but like reliable, talented, good? Yeah, that it's Ramondre Stevenson's probably going to be that testing case now for a lot of teams.
Talk about benchmark. Jacksonville just gave us a benchmark.
They certainly did. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence signing a 5-year, $275 million contract, $200 million guaranteed, tying Joe Burrow for the highest average yearly value in the NFL, over $55 million per year. Now, the important part of this is that this was an extension. It was a reworked contract. So essentially, Trevor Lawrence, it was a new contract, but what it does is the Jaguars do have a lot of wiggle room here with the next 2 seasons because the large cap hit that this is going to create doesn't actually kick in until 2026. So they get 2024 and 2025 Trevor Lawrence at a manageable cap hit discount, and then it's going to be in the 60 million cap hit type of area for the next several years after that. Yeah. So really, the window for Jacksonville is this next 2 years to figure it out. I'm not saying they have to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. The next 2 years, they have to really make some pushes here. They have to get to an AFC Championship game in the next 2 years, or at least be a team that's winning multiple playoff games in multiple years, winning the division, all of that stuff. So look, as much as the weight is probably lifted off of Trevor's shoulders now that he has literally grasped that generational wealth, there's also a lot of pressure that comes with this contract too, because now there's no more like excuses of, is the team bought into me yet? Do I have to like live up to this, live up to that? Now you have to live up to the contract. And now the team has given full faith into you and gone all in. So the pressure now is more on Trevor than it is the entire franchise. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence is going to have a bounce back year. We've talked about it. This is a major, major season for Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville all together to bounce back after a really difficult 2023 season.
It's Trevor Lawrence. This contract to me is the pure example of if you believe in the guy at the quarterback position, pay them early. Like, get this deal done early. Because, again, if they wait till after Jordan Love, if they wait till after Dak Prescott, they say, oh, no, we got another year. Let's wait and see if Trevor's our guy for another year. Well, now next year when you do that deal, you're in the 60s, right? Because that's where the market's going. And we're already looking ahead. Like, as a Bears fan, I'm sure Commanders fans are looking at this, at Jane Daniels, at Caleb Williams. Like, dear God, when my guy comes up in 3 years, you're talking mid 60s, probably what that number is going to look like. So you got to believe, you got to know, and you got to have faith, and you got to get it done early. And then when the cap hit gets really bad, what Jacksonville will look to do is probably what the Bills and the Bengals will look to do within the next year. Jacksonville will have to do it in like 3 years from now. Is that then you say, hey, we paid you big. It's worked out. You're amazing. You're great. Now let's do an extension. And then with the extension, we can shift money and smooth all this out a little bit, right? Because that's like what Patrick Mahomes got. Remember, Patrick Mahomes just got, after the Burrow deal, an extension. And it got him a little more upfront. So his number was a little more, hey, you're back near the top. But also it spreads that cap hit further down the line. You can move the money. So if you have smart owners and smart GMs, and you believe the team's going to be together for a long time, like the Chiefs certainly do, right? Where, hey, we believe this GM, this owner, this quarterback are going to be on the same timeline over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Then let's get creative with this contract. So that's definitely what the Bills, the Bengals, the Jags, they're now in that game, that world. And it's a win-win for everyone in that way, because the quarterback keeps getting paid if they're performing. And if Trevor Lawrence bombs and he's really bad in 2 years, well, then when the cap hit comes and hits, you're going to have to, swallow a huge pill, but you at least committed to a guy, and you tried it, and you made all the right moves in preparing to think that he is going to be the guy that can bring a championship to your city. I will say, when a number like this comes down, to me, the other interesting factor is those next guys getting paid. If you are the Green Bay Packers, we're hearing all hands on deck out of Green Bay that they want to get this deal done before training camp really kicks off at the end of this month, in about a month from now, end of July, when they all report. So what is that number going to look like? Will you go up into 56, 57 million for Jordan Love? And if you're a guy like Jordan Love, and if you're a guy like Trevor Lawrence, in a lot of ways, it puts the pressure on you, but also you've just won at life. You've literally just completely won at life. For a lot of guys like a Baker Mayfield, he missed that opportunity. He turned down that money, that big, hey, because it was only $100 million, and I wanted what Josh Allen was getting, which was $180 million or whatever it was. And it's like, well, he had to then almost by the skin of his teeth claw his way back into the NFL, work his butt off to then get the generational wealth contract, money extension like he just got. For these guys, a Jordan Love, if he sucks for the next 4 years after signing a big deal, well, okay, the worst thing is you're now a former NFL quarterback, but you have $140 million, 150, Trevor Lawrence case, $200 million guaranteed in the bank, generational wealth, your life is set. Like, that's worst case scenario. And when that's worst case scenario, your job and your life, it puts a lot into perspective of like, oh, I'm going to work my ass off. And now best case scenario is I can get another one of these contracts and I can win a Super Bowl. I can be a legend, and I can be sitting on $500 million guaranteed in the bank, and maybe a Super Bowl ring and a legacy and all those things that you really want. But for guys like Trevor Lawrence, worst case scenario in his life is he's not playing football in 3 years from now, and he's got $200 million in the bank in a state with no income tax. So he really wanted life.
Exactly.
It's interesting, and it's certainly, if you're a Caleb Williams, if you are a Jane Daniels, Drake May, talk about motivation, right? Look at the money that's being handed out right now, and all you got to do to prove to your loser franchise, the Jags, you know what I mean? Like, and the Commanders and Bears fit into this. Or if you're, look at Jared Goff, to your loser franchise, the Lions, Like, all you got to prove to them is 2 out of 3 years make the playoffs and, like, show a lot of promise, and you're going to guaranteed probably get $200 million that they'll never take from you. Like, all right, I'm going to work my ass off for the next 2 to 3 years. Let's make the playoffs 2 out of 3 years in a row. And I just set myself up for generational wealth no matter what happens the rest of my career. We are now in an era where that is the norm in the NFL, which is, it's a weird thing to be it, because let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. We have no idea if Jordan Love can lead the Packers to Super Bowl wins. We have no idea if Trevor Lawrence can honestly lead the Jaguars to Super Bowl wins. But he's now going to make more money in his guarantees in his career than dudes who won many Super Bowls, or guys like a Big Ben, who, like, we knew every year he could go in and win a Super Bowl if he was your quarterback. And they've already made more money than them. It's crazy.
Easily. Yeah,
crazy.
No, it is wild. I mean, we were talking on the phone like a week or so ago about this contract, and I brought up the point too that 3 years ago we were talking about how asinine the Browns' $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson was. And it was for, obviously,
it's still the most guaranteed, and it's still
it was still the money part of it, regardless of the total issues that he had, that they had to bring on, the fact that they were willing to pay that much for an unknown circumstances. We even thought that's a lot of money to pay, even if you know exactly what you're getting with a guy. That's a lot of guaranteed money. Fast forward now a few years later, and Trevor Lawrence is getting 200 guaranteed. And to be fair, I mean, to play devil's advocate, because we've been two big Trevor Lawrence supporters throughout our time on the show, he hasn't proven a whole heck of a lot.
No.
And he's gotten 200 million guaranteed now. So it's if we called that crazy $230 million a few years ago to Deshaun Watson, this is also like, wow, the league is really moving fast, and the money's moving even faster. It's wild. It's wild.
But honestly, when we talked, I think the one thing that I was, we both said, they're like, they got to do it. And like, in the end,
they did. Yeah, they did.
In the end,
we agree on that.
To me, it's still the right move. Like, I know it's crazy, but it's the right move, because he's your draft pick. He's in your system. You're now committing to him 100% all in. And again,
and he did bring them to a division
and won a playoff game. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Come from behind playoff win. Yeah.
In the tougher AFC against a quarterback who we deem just as talented, if not more talented than him and Justin Herbert. And so, the Deshaun thing is slightly different. A lot of that was because of everything swirling around him. We knew you're going to miss a whole season, and you're signing him anyways. And and we didn't even know if he could play football anymore. Like,
at that point we knew it was going to be 2 years removed from playing.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and that, so there's a lot of dumbness for the Browns versus the Jaguars. The devil's advocate will say, if you listen to this show, we talked a lot about it. And I said it with Justin Fields. Like, one of the things that I kept saying was like, a huge benefit would be keep him on the rookie scale. And if you started him this year, like if they took the haul or whatever and they didn't draft Caleb Williams, you're in a world now where you say, well, you know what? And if at the end you don't pay him because he's just not good enough, you just escaped having to commit $200 million, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Right. But if you're a loser franchise, Cardinals, and they got Kyler Murray, and he got paid $49 million a year, guaranteed. The Jags, the Lions, the Browns. If you feel like we got a guy now who can get us just to the playoffs consistently, that is worth $200 million guaranteed in the modern NFL with how much money's coming in. Being in the playoffs consistently, the exposure, the vibes for your franchise, the season tickets, the PSLs, all of that, the ad revenue, it's all worth it. It's worth it. And if you are the Texans right now, and you feel like your guy is like the guy, like how the Jags felt about Trevor last year, you're almost saying to yourself, "Do we just do it now? Like, can we do it now?" But if you're a smart agent and you're CJ Stroud's agent, you say, we believe in ourselves we can do this again, right? Recreate the wheel. And maybe if we wait it, a year or two, we're talking about 70 million guaranteed, right? Like he could be that first guy hitting those type of numbers.
But
so,
I don't know if I would advise that though, because I think, Patrick Mahomes is a good case study on this. If you're good enough and you're that talented, which you're betting on yourself, you'll end up doing a reworked contract anyway.
yeah.
So if I'm CJ Stroud, I'd actually rather have as much guaranteed money in the bank today
as quickly
because
as
tomorrow
possibly.
my career could
tear
be
your
over.
ACL. Yeah.
No,
you're right. So, you're right. And I think on top of that, which is really fun, and you nailed there, not only the extension, but do the long deal. Like if you're the Texans, you go to CJ. If CJ Stroud,
an 8-year,
if CJ Stroud this year leads the Texans to another like playoff win, say they find themselves in an AFC title game and lose to Kansas City in a shootout, then you say to him, let's do the Josh Allen deal, the 7-year or the 6-year, more than the 5-year, because Trevor got the 5, where it's like add on those extra years. Mahomes got the 10. I don't know if you go 10. But you say, hey,
10's a rare case.
But you say, hey, let's do let's add the years. Let's really commit to each other, and then we can always rework and have fun. It's crazy. Who do you think is the next quarterback that gets paid? To me, at this point, I don't hear any movement with Dak. I think it's got to be Love, and I think Love's numbers will be Trevor Lawrence plus like 0.1. Because remember when Kyler got his deal, and then the next year it was like, who was it? Herbert last year, like it was like 3 in a row, and it was like, oh, and then that guy got like 0.1 more. I think it was Hurts over Herbert, and I think that's what the deal looked like. It'll say, hey, we're giving you Trevor Lawrence plus 1 million, like 1 million more a year guaranteed, so he'll be at 56, and we'll give you 201 million guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like in the bank, no matter what. That's my guess.
Yeah, my only guess would be, or my thought on it is, what do the Dolphins do with Tua? Because that has to happen, this upcoming year. So he would be the only other one where I'm like, okay, maybe he'll be the one.
Him and Jordan Love are the same class
to make that money.
The thing with Dak that's interesting is that Dak, Jerry and the Cowboys literally can't do anything with CeeDee Lamb and Micah unless they know what they're doing with Dak. Like if you come out tomorrow and the news breaks that CeeDee Lamb is getting, somewhere more than AJ Brown but less than Justin Jefferson, and Micah Parsons is also getting somewhere a little bit around Justin Jefferson money, like guaranteed top player, non-quarterback money, like Nick Bosa money, well, then you're basically admitting to the NFL, Dak Prescott will be a free agent in the summer. Now, you can negotiate with him then and try to figure out a way to keep him in Dallas, but if you also then pay Dak right now, or you rework Dak's deal and give him an extension, then it allows you to start messing the numbers with CeeDee and Micah and try to keep all three. But it's going to be really interesting. Dak's extension, I just don't know how you pay him Trevor Lawrence money. I just don't know how you do it.
We're in fierce agreement on that with
the part, and it's the Cowboys. It's so fascinating. You have CeeDee, who you can make the argument he's the second best wide receiver in the league. To me, he's more like 3rd, 4. I have him like 3 or 4. I think Jamar
guaranteed
Chase
top 5.
Guaranteed top 5. But you just the number 1 wide receiver just now became the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL history. Well, Micah Parsons has an argument to say, wait a minute, I'm better than Nick Bosa, and I'm more valuable in a lot of ways than Justin Jefferson being the rush the passer guy. I should be the new highest non-paid ahead of Bosa and ahead of Jefferson. So if you have to pay him Justin Jefferson money plus 1 million, right? And then you say CeeDee's got to get more than AJ Brown. Like, that's an insane amount of money.
Yeah, you can't.
For 2 guys.
Justify it. No,
it's crazy. I don't know what the
not just for 2 guys, but one of those guys isn't in the top 10 at his position. At least you and I would agree that. He's just not at top 15. But top 10.
And
No.
with Tua, there was a report, I don't remember who it was, but I heard it that Tua was considering an offer at Kyler Murray's number, 49. Like now,
I would take that instantly.
if you're Tua, I would 100% take
Yeah.
that. I'd
Yeah.
argued
He needs to
on
take
behalf, I'd argue on behalf is like, if you're Tua, just honestly be the win over the media and the fan base by being the ultimate team guy and just say, give me a 4-year, 160 million fully guaranteed. Just 4 years, 40 million, every like 160 guaranteed. Like that's the number. 4 years, fully guaranteed, but at 4 years less, and I'm giving you only 40 million. So when Trevor Lawrence costs you 55, I'm saving you 15. He'd be a hero. He'd be a hero. You'd look at him like he was a god. Like it'd be like dumb business, but he's a hero. He wants to win. He wants to be a part of this team. He look at how much he's taken a huge pay cut. He could have forced them to pay. Like, and it's still generational wealth.
Well, and you got to play it. Yeah, absolutely. And you got to play it smart because you got to know, sometimes, hubris can get the best of anybody. But especially athletes who their whole lives have been probably the best on their team at their respective sport. And sometimes you can get a little too ahead of yourself and say, no, I'm going to bet on myself. At a certain point, you also got to read the room. If you're Tua, how many other teams, like there's going to be another team, I'm sure, that takes a chance on you, but they're not going to pay you a great amount of money. And, the grass isn't always greener. So like literally, if you have a chance to make $100+ million guaranteed and you're Tua, and you're in a system that works for you and a head coach you like in a division that, we'd argue is a winnable division compared to the AFC North or the AFC West, NFC West even. I would say you got to take that.
My guess, and from what I've heard with the Tua situation, is they're at a number, and the number is like 49. Like, we don't want to go 50 million for you, Tua. We're just not going to do it. And Tua's waiting as long as he can and is letting his agent work as hard as he can to get into the 50s, because I do think it'll be seen as like a slight embarrassment, like to my guy, that he got less, you know what I mean? But I agree with you.
Not everybody's the next generational talent,
And if you're the Dolphins, that is your ultimate bargaining power against Tua. And it sucks, but you have to do it in these negotiations. Say, who's going to pay you $50 million? Like Tua, we'll let you hit free agency next year. Like, we'll do what's best for you. We'll let you hit free agency. Because if you really think you're worth that, like, we'll let you hit free agency and try to get that. Because he's not going to get it. No one would pay him 50 plus.
And there's more and more quarterbacks being introduced into the league every year.
Yes.
We're seeing a record number of rookie quarterbacks come in and play early. So there's a lot of teams that could use a Tua, but still are going to go with their, 1, 2, 3 year quarterback that they invested in just a couple years prior. So the pool of available teams is becoming fewer. There's always going to be a couple, but and what if a couple of those are in cold weather cities that I don't think Tua wants to go to? Miami's a perfect spot for him.
Yeah. Well, think about it, Dan. You made a great point with the quarterbacks coming into the league. Just from the Trevor Lawrence draft and then this year's draft, that's 11 quarterbacks in the first round.
That's a third of the league.
In the first round, that's 11 quarterbacks 4 years ago and this year. And a first-round quarterback is eventually going to be named the starter. So and then in between that, you had the Kenny Pickett year, only one. That's rare. Like that we now know is a rarity. And then you had last year, which we had 3. So that's now 12. And then you had 3 more, 15. So half the league basically in 4 years is starting a new quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a guy who is not, already won playoff games or won MVPs or won a Super Bowl, you have to be looking and talking with your agent going, these dudes are coming in at an insane rate and teams are taking more chances. Look what the Bears have done. As much as I get frustrated by the fact that I now have this weird history of Mitch, Justin, and then to Caleb, credit to the Bears for not after Mitch going, we tried to draft a guy. Now we're panicking. We're just going to throw another huge money at a Mike Glennon again, a backup, right? Because that's what they, you get in this panic mode to go, the rookie didn't work, so now we got to go find a veteran. No, they said 3 years in a row after it's like, guy, we drafted, tried it, failed. Drafted, tried it, failed. Drafted. And I hope if Caleb Williams doesn't work out, you just draft the next guy, because that's the plan for financial success in the NFL right now. And it is the plan for, like, you're just playing the lottery. Keep playing that lottery and finding that guy.
Have urgency.
Give him 3 years. Didn't work. Get a new guy in there. So it's a really fascinating thing. And then the Trevor Lawrence contract we're going to look at as another kind of line of demarcation. That Kyler Murray contract 3 years ago is now the Trevor Lawrence. Every 3 years, there's kind of that new moment where, like, God, guy hasn't really done anything, and he just got a giant contract. Kyler's looked worse at the time because they had the provision about the not playing video games, studying your film book, and also he then immediately got injured. And so it's like, ooh, like that's it. Now it feels even uglier. For Trevor, the pressure is to stay healthy, but also, you're in the AFC where as we know right now, it's hard to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the AFC, let alone the NFL.
Right. Yep, absolutely. All right, let's shift gears from the young quarterbacks in the league to the oldest, Aaron Rodgers.
Exhausting.
It really is. I mean, I can't think of a player in my Antonio Brown. It's got to be like Antonio Brown's the only other player I can think of, and his was even in a shorter span of time, that you can guarantee bookmark it every year. We're going to have to be talking about something drama-driven with this player. Aaron Rodgers, yet again, causing a completely avoidable situation.
Yeah.
Misses mandatory OTAs because of an unexcused absence. Robert Saleh had to go to the podium during the OTAs saying, we had 2 unexcused absences. Aaron's one of them. He had an event that was more important to him, and that's all we heard. And we don't know where Aaron Rodgers went, what event this was. There's been plenty of speculation it was another ayahuasca trip, which very well could be the case. If that's the case, that's insane. Like, it's totally predictable and yet still unbelievable at the same time. Because we're talking about a guy coming off of a year where they were the highest of highs in New York, and then
played 4 snaps.
Series happens and he gets injured. So you're coming off of an Achilles, which is a career ruiner for a lot of players. You're on a new team. You have had pretty much an overhaul of the offensive line and some new weapons to work with, all of which is, very, I guess, limited in terms of the practice times because of the new CBA over the last couple of years. They can't get to the field as much. So you would think that mandatory OTAs, something that is mandatory,
you'd think,
would be of a, primo importance to Aaron Rodgers, but apparently it's not. I feel like if it was something serious, they would have mentioned that, but the fact that there's all of this mystery around where he was, they could have just said it was a family thing, or there are plenty of unexcused absences. I think
you're missing the biggest drama point on it. They could have just said it's an excused absence, and then we'd be like, all right, well,
yes,
he's off doing something. But
they wanted to point out this is on air.
They're getting fed up because they every day got to answer the questions. I will say this: Aaron Rodgers over the last year and a half is literally become the definition of having his cake and eating it too. He wants to have his cake and he wants to eat it too. I thought when Aaron said at the end of, the season, when he's like, we need to get all the drama, the non-football stuff out of the room. That's the quote that they keep going back to now. And it's like making almost fun of himself. Like, okay, they got out of the room. It's literally the pot calling the kettle black. Is that I thought maybe, this is going to be, he's going to recommit to football for one more real run. And he's going to try to boast his Aaron's interesting. He reminds me a lot of Kevin Durant in a weird way, where Kevin Durant's very active online and he throws shade. Yeah. He had the burner and he basically admitted I have a burner. Now
he knows everything that's being talked about.
Yes. And now he's just in the weeds on it. And I think they're very similar. When you look at Kevin Durant, you say, well, Kevin Durant is a top 10 all-time talent, guaranteed. Like, he's a freak. But is he one of the 10 best basketball players ever?
Yeah.
Probably not when you actually
And is
think
he a
of
locker room guy?
Yes, and Aaron Rodgers is now very much like he's a top 5 quarterback talent ever. But is he a top 5 quarterback ever? Probably not, because of all of the other things. And I think Aaron, like Kevin, Aaron is not married, is no family, no kids. He has nothing to prioritize or take his time besides what does Aaron want to do? What does Aaron like to do? Aaron likes to do this. Aaron wants to go in a darkness retreat. Aaron wants to go and talk about all the things that Aaron wants to talk about. Aaron wants to actually consider running for vice president with a Kennedy. Like, he's doing all that because Aaron doesn't have like a diaper to change and like, hey, this is the short time I have with my family, so I'm going to spend it. We're going to go to, Florida.
Just other people to be accountable to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying, listen, I'm not hating on the single people or the non-married people or whatever that, but because there's plenty of non-married dudes in the NFL who don't put on the show that Aaron does, right? Like Joe Burrow's not married. He's not out there putting on the show like Aaron does. But Aaron, I truly believe, is doing all this because Aaron knows he is limited in his overall scale of how far up he can climb the ladder. He's not Brady. He's not Manning. He's not Montana. So he's not those 3. And then so the conversation would start at 4. But a lot of the other guys, he's now got MVPs, but had a lot more Super Bowl and playoff success and, all of this, that, and the other. So what Aaron, I truly think, is doing is he's saying, I am now building, though, a career where I see myself as a Muhammad Ali type of character, where in 40 years from now, I think Aaron Rodgers truly thinks people are going to talk about me and they're going to say, oh, and by the way, he was one of like the top 5 talented quarterbacks of all time. I really think that's what he's building up for. I truly think he wants, when he's in his 80s, for people to go, hey, did you know that he was also one of the greatest talented quarterbacks of all time? Because I'm going to do this. I'm going to further, me and Joe Rogan are going to make mushrooms legal in every state, and people are going to open up their minds. And I'm going to actually get into politics, and I'm going to make the world a better place at this, or that. And like, I truly
be
think
a philosopher. He's probably,
yes.
He strikes me as a guy that's going to end up publishing like 6 books.
Yes.
And it's all going to be just like
the Jeopardy thing.
His head, right?
The Jeopardy thing is, now I look back at the Jeopardy thing, like, it was really real. Like, the dude fucking wanted Jeopardy. Like, really did. Because he sees it as, again, it's this legacy beyond. It's this legacy of like, oh, John Madden, the broadcaster. Oh, wait, he was actually one of the unique, great coaches of all time, too. Like, I think he sees him as like, but he's like Peyton Manning. All Peyton will have is like, well, Peyton Manning, funny guy, but like one of the great quarterbacks of all time.
He wants to have a mythos about him.
Tom Brady's going to have a football life. Football is going to be the life for Tom Brady. He's going to be a great broadcaster, and he's just a football lifer. Aaron wants the Muhammad Ali. He wants the, all the other insert name of like the legendary guys you put on the Mount Rushmore of like, no, they changed the world. And they were able to do it because they started with this profession, right? So I think it's all BS, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is ever going to change the world. I don't think it's going to ever really happen for him. But this is the only way. It's the only way I can make any sense of this, is that Aaron in his world sees himself as he's got to be good at football this year so he can keep using that as the platform. But overall, he's now going to live in this TMZ world of everything he is just talked about in this beyond football, in a space that the other mere football players can't live within.
Possibly comprehend. Yeah. No, it's and it
is an ayahuasca trip. Like, that's to me guaranteed. I mean, like, it's guaranteed. That's what it is. Yeah, a guarantee. It's a darkness. It's not. We're not going to come.
You're right.
He'll admit it. He'll say it. He'll go on Rogan and say it, and he'll justify that. Shame on the Jets. I didn't know they were going to say the Jets are the reason this blew up, not me. I didn't realize they were going to turn this into some sort of circus. And he'll go on Rogan and he'll say something.
Or blame the media for like talking about it, like, oh, it was just a couple days of practice.
And it's, again, the mainstream media doesn't understand the healing and what this does for me. This is good for my football because it's I'm getting I need, and
just so
and
happened that you scheduled it on
it's the only time
window.
the great shaman, you guys wouldn't know him because you live in a world where marijuana bad, but it's the only time this great Nepal shaman in the mountains. I trust from not Rappaport, who was it? One of the insiders was on Colin Cowherd, and he said, he's like, to my knowledge,
Albert Breer, maybe?
Albert Breer. He
Yeah,
said, I can guarantee he is in the other side of the world. And when I say the other side of the world, not like Europe. He's on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And he's doing something
in a different dimension. He's in a different dimension.
That is, what we mere mortals who host sports talk shows have no idea about. So I'd say overall, again, it becomes a bigger story when the Jets start 0-3. If they do.
It sucks for Robert Saleh, it sucks for Garrett Wilson, and it sucks for, the new offensive line and just everyone on the team who are trying to look, want a leader, and it's just hard to do when, again, especially coming off an injury. Like you didn't do anything last year. No. So, I mean, every other Jet was in that camp except for Hassan Reddick, who got traded there and is still trying to be like, listen, you traded for me, give me a new contract. Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't want to just go into the year as a mercenary, which if I'm Hassan Reddick, I get. He's a very talented player. He deserves a new contract. So every other Jet was there. And I did hear the report, Tyrod Taylor had no idea he was going to be taking the majority of the snaps for minicamp. No one knew.
Of course not.
So, and again, failure to communicate, and Aaron will say, well, listen, I'm just the quarterback. The coach is in charge. I would want to overstep his bounds by telling people that I'm not going to be there. I had a discussion with the coach, and the coach decided it was unexcused, and the coach decided to go to the meeting. He's going to blame Saleh. Like, he does not take accountability. He's just not who he is. Right. So we'll have another year of this BS, this crazy. I hope he plays all year. I hope he stays healthy, because I truly think he's not going to play great. And I truly think the Jets are going to be a fighting for 500 team, fighting for that 7th wildcard spot. And I think that's going to be, to me, the true, then sports fans will remind him of, like, that's how you win out, bud. Like, that's how you chose to go out like this.
Yep.
Yep.
No, very true. All right. Well, let's speak about a couple other players that are, pushing to get, recognition amongst their specific teams. Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, and to a lesser extent, Jamar Chase as well, both of the Cincinnati Bengals there. But we'll start with Brandon Ayuk, who went out on TikTok, on social media, basically posting out there that the 49ers don't want him, which, I mean, everyone
while he was in a discussion,
that's obviously not true.
Who was he talking to? Was it Bryce Young, or was it? No, it was Jane
I didn't
Daniels.
actually see the actual.
It was Jane Daniels. He was on a FaceTime interview thing with Jane Daniels. They went live together. And remember, this is how old Jane Daniels is. He threw to Brandon Ayuk when they were at Arizona State together.
Right.
Which is a good, funny reminder of how weird that whole world is.
But look, the 49ers, everybody, including Ian Rappaport, who kind of led off with that when the video came out, the 49ers absolutely want Brandon Ayuk. It's just about the numbers.
Obviously.
That's clearly the issue here. But trade rumor talks have heated up since all of this, and there's still plenty of time for a deal to get done. So, do we think Brandon Ayuk's going to be a 49er this season? Do we think he's going to get traded? Like, what do we make of this situation right now? Because there's still plenty of time for teams, and selfishly, the Steelers are among the top teams that are reported to be in conversations with the 49ers. I'm just curious if a deal actually does get done, because after a certain point of time, Brandon Ayuk is going to be an issue that the 49ers just don't want to deal with anymore, especially when they got a rookie wide receiver that they drafted high. They still have Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. They got plenty of weapons.
Yeah. If I'm the Niners, I start the conversation with AJ Brown's number plus $1 million. We'll pay you $1 million more than AJ Brown. I don't think he's as good as AJ Brown, but we'll say, hey, we'll give you AJ Brown's number plus $1 million. You're not getting anywhere close to Justin Jefferson. We're not doing it. And if you think that's disrespectful, and you think that is so horrible, and that's us not wanting you by making you right now the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, then I would say get your bags ready. We are going to trade you, and we're going to get as much for you as possible. You don't have a no trade clause, so good luck with the rest of your career. And if that's what Brandon Ayuk and his team think is best, I would get as much as you could. I bet you could get maybe a first rounder for him, depending on the franchise and how desperate they are. But I bet you could definitely get a second rounder,
probably and seconds potentially. Yeah,
a second, and then if you could get a Steelers to say we'll give you 2025 second and 2024 third or whatever, or 2026 third or whatever, and then maybe another player, someone who you just say, hey, we got our eye on them and we need a little depth at, corner or whatever. I don't know. Then you take it and you just say, all right, you now got to deal with him and decide to pay him or not. He didn't want 80.1 from us. Are you guys willing to go 90 million a year?
Right.
90 million guaranteed for AJ for Ayuk or whatever. Good luck to you. Like I think he's a good player.
And it's harder too because we're seeing true wide receiver ones now coming out of college at a clip and producing very quickly. So again, your leverage as a true number one who's now 5 years into his career it starts to wane a little bit because Marvin Harrison Jr. just got drafted. Malik Neighbors, like they're expected to be top tier wide receiver ones, and who knows what Rome Odunze, like who's going to come out
in a smart decision. Now I'll ask you, Dan, is he anywhere near your top 5?
No, he's. I mean, I would say. I don't know. That's kind of a hard question because he's not in my top 5, but
he's
anywhere near.
I
would say he's top 12, 13, 14.
Yes. And so then it's a little bit of what do you flavor and what do you, because there's a lot of guys in that.
He might be getting buried a little bit in San Fran, to be fair. He's playing with there's so many targets to go around. If he was the number one on the Patriots, he'd probably clean up,
If you are, I agree. If you are Pittsburgh, New England, Carolina, you make the call. You make the call. If you are, who else is a young?
I was going to say New Orleans. They've got Chris Olave, but I mean,
there's
a lot of teams.
Young
talented Tennessee could really.
Tennessee, they just got
they got Calvin Ridley,
and Hopkins.
Yeah, but Hopkins has one more year.
Yeah.
Hopkins is now probably more of a
Indianapolis. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm with 100%. Sure. You got to make the call. There's plenty of teams that make the call and should make the call. Some, heck, even the Rams. Like, I think the Rams,
the Raiders, Devontae Adams isn't getting any younger. I mean,
the Raiders would be a good decision.
Young. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that would.
If I'm the Niners, I don't.
Who has the money though? How many teams have the money to be able?
We don't know. We're just listing off teams.
Yeah.
If I'm the Niners, I don't cave. I don't cave. I would say here is our number. Here's where we value that we still can appreciate you. We still can have you a part of our program, and we still can pay our guys down the line who we're going to need to pay. And if you want to be a part of this winning, stay here. If you don't, good luck to you.
I think that the Cincinnati Bengals should pay Jamar Chase and get a deal done that's close to Justin Jefferson. And I think they should let T. Higgins ride out this year and let him walk. He's great. He's fantastic. He's probably very close to being a number one on a majority of teams. Really hard to justify all of the spending, especially when there are so many great young wide receivers coming out of college.
Yeah.
T. Higgins did sign his franchise tender. We're still not out of the woods with him.
We don't know if they're going to hold out.
Right. We don't know if he'll hold out. Like, he still obviously wants to get an extension done. They have till July 15th to be able to do something like that. So, things are heating up, but they're not causing a huge scene like Ayuk is or like Aaron Rodgers is. So, I mean, it's an interesting decision though for Cincinnati to figure out what they're doing in the wide receiver room. They got to get at least one of these guys. That's for sure.
And if you're the Bengals, I'd get the Chase deal done before anything happens in Dallas because you don't want to have to pay him more than CeeDee Lamb, depending on where CeeDee Lamb's number lands. And if Micah gets not Justin Jefferson money, like then you got to find a way. Like you got to pay him more than Micah Parsons still because you got to be close to Justin. Like. To me, the most important deal to get done in the NFL right now is the Jamar Chase deal for the Bengals. Like, that is the deal. Get it done. Find the number. Make the marriage happy. And I agree with you, T. Higgins. I still talk with him, but you talk with him with more realistic expectations. And you say, hey, listen, if you're that willing to test free agency and you're that willing to say someone's going to pay me A.J. Brown money with all the talent coming into this league, and you'll then be in year, 6 going into years, like, okay.
I think maybe I think this is going to be year 4 for T. Higgins.
So year 5.
So it'd be going into year 5.
Yeah.
I think.
Because there are teams that will still need a bona fide one, but you hope to say, hey, stay here another year, get another 1,000 yards, be our guy. Let's go out there and make a Super Bowl again. And then at the end of the year, let's pick up negotiations again.
Oh, you're right. It will be year 6. He's only 25 though. He came into the league at 21 years old.
Yeah,
so,
he was there before.
Chase. Yeah. So this will be year 5 for him, and then he'll be going into year 6 after that. So
the Chase deal is to me the most imperative deal to get done, because you don't want to then deal with all the CeeDee Lamb and the Micah drama. Set that number for Jamar, get it close to Justin, and say, hey, we love you. Let's go win a Super Bowl.
I know we've spent a lot of time kind of catching up on this episode, but I do want to discuss the NFL Sunday Ticket lawsuit for a little bit here. Spend a few minutes, because this is it's pretty important and could have huge ramifications on the viewing public and how TV contracts get done in the future too. So, based on a lot of the various reading that I've done on this is the best understanding I have. It is very confusing. A lot of it is very legalese language that's hard to parse through. But from what I understand, this is a lawsuit dating back to the 2010s that was filed against the league, basically accusing the NFL of colluding with DirecTV, CBS, and Fox in making the Sunday Ticket package a ballooned price to disincentivize people to purchase it, so that the majority of viewers will stay watching CBS and Fox games.
Yep.
While also lining the pockets of DirecTV for the Sunday Ticket subscriptions that they do sell, because it'll be so expensive and they'll be able to, make that a justifiable price. The lawsuit is alleging that the NFL, basically violated several laws, regarding collusion against the public and putting forth basically using a corporate monopoly to hurt viewers and consumers of the product. I don't know all of the specifics of what they can actually prove and like get it down to it. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk,
he's all over this.
He's a former lawyer, so he knows a lot about this. He says that they have made a very, very compelling case, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the NFL is going to lose this case. We'll see if that happens. They're facing $7.1 billion in damages because it's a nationwide lawsuit, civil suit here. The NFL is arguing this is a premium product, has always been marketed as a premium product, was never meant for a larger consumer base. It was meant for an elite group, and that's why they're, that's how they're positioning themselves here. We'll see what happens, but the thought is, if they lose, and it's looking apparently like it's going that way, then the Sunday Ticket could be completely upended to where the NFL is having to allow packages to people for much, much cheaper, and potentially even allow them to purchase just packages for their team. Specifically, which could be less than $100 a year. Very interesting stuff.
And so I also know Florio has said basically he thinks the NFL will never pay anything. That he sees a path for the NFL to,
like,
even
as
if
a
they
settlement,
lose,
they'll just offer
even if they lose, they'll take it to another court that takes it to another court, and it's going to be one of those things that they can keep. Then they have the money and the power to like get it to the Supreme Court, and like at that point, like it just becomes like a leave this alone. Like he believes the most likely outcome of this will be it all kind of falls apart and nothing ever gets paid out to people getting like recouping funds. But he does believe that it'll bring so much public scrutiny from people like us talking about it and more that the NFL will basically have to say, we did get caught red-handed. If you want to buy only Bears games, they'll never be blacked out. Here you go. You can buy them from wherever. He said that even it could force the NFL to even just do a game by game. Hey, this week I just really want to watch this game no matter where I'm at. And you can buy them like you buy on Amazon a movie. Like, I want to buy this movie. We'll see what comes of it. I've always thought the DirecTV was overpriced. It always made sense that, they were trying to make it overpriced because if you're CBS and your Fox go, wait a minute, I just paid you $1 billion for all these games, and now you're going to let someone watch other games and not the games that are in their area. That's the whole point. With the blackouts and all that BS that we go through with baseball and all these other stupid things like that. So, when I'm in an area where it's like, oh, the Cubs are on ESPN Plus. Nope, can't watch it because they're in your broadcast area. So you got to buy the marquee network. It's just all bull. It's all annoying and frustrating.
I mean, the only workaround really, or what I don't know how realistic this is, but you can make the CBS and Fox games standalone, almost like prime time every week. And it's like, okay, you've got those are the two games. And, if they're available then, because like Florio was mentioning, you could watch, like, if you were paying week to week for games and the Bears play on Sunday night this week, well, now you don't need to pay for the thing because you're going to be able to watch them NBC, on prime time. Do something like that where you could pay for, your teams throughout the year, but if they're on CBS or if they're the CBS or Fox game this week, then you don't have to pay. You just go straight to CBS and you watch it. That could still incentivize them to go to those networks and watch the games, while still paying for this premium product throughout the rest of the year. And
I think, to me, like the real kind of nail in the coffin for all this, in my opinion, is that it really sucks to, when you're reading through a lot of this, to realize for years the NFL could have just been letting us, like, oh yeah, pick whatever game you want to watch and just watch it. Because that's all we've ever wanted. Like, right? That's all we've ever wanted, especially a guy like you, who you don't live in the area that your team plays. I am fairly lucky still being in Illinois, but I'm on the Missouri border. So if the Chiefs and the Bears are both on CBS or Fox, most of the broadcasting people in our area, they go Chiefs because they're multiple Super Bowls and the Chiefs are growing, and we're Missouri and Illinois. And it's just like, and we're actually, I live closer to Kansas City than Chicago, even though I'm an Illinois resident. So it's one of those I'm in a weird, funky moment where I've had to go to bars before that have Sunday ticket and have them put the Bears on, even though it's a noon game on a Sunday and the Bears are on CBS. It's like, it's the world I live in. So it's just shame on the NFL. It's definitely a little bit of a black eye. They'll fight through this, and in the end, they'll come out winners. The NFL always finds a way to come out a winner. They'll pay nothing, and they'll get the praise of, like, look, we give you what you want now.
Yeah,
it's cheaper, and you buy it whenever you want, and it's owned by YouTube, and so YouTube's going to make all the money on it. And I just go onto YouTube and I click buy this game for $3.99, and YouTube cashes in, you know what I mean, or whatever the hell it is. It's going to end up being. It actually is the one thing that streaming and the NFL makes sense with. NFL should not be on streaming except for the buy a single game. That's the thing that should be on streaming.
Yeah. I mean, now we've got Prime, Netflix, Apple TV, all of that stuff. It's being spread out so thin that this was already moving that way anyway. I mean, the next networks were already losing their grasp on the exclusivity of it all. But the NFL is just, clutching to as much as it can. I mean, that's what Roger Goodell, that's his biggest claim to fame, is what he did with the broadcast rights for the NFL. It's why he's been year over year getting
the only reason Trevor Lawrence is getting $55 million a year is because of Roger Goodell's ability to milk the networks and the advertising.
The NFL owners absolutely love it. They love him and what he's been able to do for them. So they're going to keep voting for that.
Which is why you continue to see gambling penalties and protect the shield penalties as strict as they are. Because the only thing that can take down the guy at the top is a failure within the system. And that's players gambling on games, refs gambling, or anything like that. That's the only thing that can hurt the NFL right now. And that's why they're strict against it.
Well, you've got issues with Chris Sims's top 40 quarterbacks in the league. We will discuss that next week. Excited to get more into that and parse through that. We've got a couple weeks here before the official reporting to training camp happens, and then of course it'll be a month.
It'll be Hard Knocks before we know it.
Yeah, exactly. Hard Knocks coming, which the AFC North going to be on in-season Hard Knocks. We'll talk about that next week too, because that'll be pretty cool. Looking forward to that as well. All right, well, that'll do it for us here on our welcome back episode of the Football Lounge. Appreciate you all tuning in. We'll see you here next time.